I get that asked being a finance broker almost on a daily basis. Especially from people that are entering into the marketplace saying, I don't own my own home, or my income is only so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, those are all important factors. But at the same time, I think what's more important is what's your track record look like? And if you're just starting out, yes, you will need slightly more equity in the background. Yes, you might need to put in more cash to get the project going. But if you've got a track record that spans 3, 4, 5, 10 years, that you can lean on a lot more than having lots and lots of money in the bank. I think that successful track record, showing that you've been able to navigate certain markets, volatility, etc., or projects that have not gone quite to plan, and you can kind of talk about how you made sure you got through it and made sure everyone got paid back, even though you didn't make a massive profit or a small loss. Those sorts of experiences, problem solving, I think, from a lending point of view, gives you a lot of confidence.
Oh, we love stuff like that. We had a borrower not that long ago come to us, and he had a scheme, a pretty big scheme as well. You know, it was I think over 50 units, right? So not a small, and he'd done a lot of development prior to 2008, and he personally did very badly through that period of time. But one of the things that was really impressive about him when we kind of looked at his portfolio and what he had done in the past was, even though none of the schemes that he'd done in that period, and a lot of them took a loss, he took the loss.
Yeah.
So all of his contractors were paid. He had no suppliers that took him to court. All of that type of stuff. It wasn't that he just shut down an SPV and walked away and went, right, forget this, I'm not involved anymore. He managed all the way through and kept a reputation. And so it took him a while to get back on his feet. But actually, we really like that, because when that came through to me, and this isn't even a deal application, actually, I'm hoping it does go to application soon. But when I looked at it, and people turn around and go, how do you know that this now scheme is going to work? Well, you don't. You don't know the scheme's going to work, but I'm pretty confident that he's going to enable us to get our money back, because his track record has demonstrated that.
Because you got the jockey and the horse thing, which also came up the other day.
Yeah.
You're looking at the person at the end of the day, because you can have the most profitable deal in the world, and somebody that doesn't quite really have gives you the gut feeling that they're going to be able to get out of bed and make sure that they're going to roll their sleeves up and make shit happen. If things start to get difficult, which inevitably it always does at some point. Yeah, exactly. So you're always, you answered on the day. You back the person, the jockey, to be able to navigate through. If there's a tighter margin, you'd rather do that deal than the other one.
100%. And it also comes down to using the analogy jockey and a horse. The horse is theoretical, right? Your profit, it may be the most profitable scheme in the world on paper. Until it's delivered, it's just a bunch of numbers, right? Whereas the individual that then is behind that, of course, you need to have a decent scheme. If you've not got a decent scheme, it doesn't matter how good the person is. If it's loss-making on paper, it's going to be loss-making in real life. So, but the people behind it are then really, really key. So if you've already got, tick in the box, we've got a profitable scheme. There's a starting point on paper, and there are some margins, and they've built decent contingencies in. But then the people that sit behind it, that's then what we really want to look into. So how are you going to turn this theory into reality? And that's why you should always back the individual or the team that is delivering.
Makes sense. So, in these turbulent times, valuations.
Oh, wow. Here we go. Go on.
So what's been your observation? It's something that came up the other day. Just for context, you were on a panel, an expert panel that we did at the Central London Property Meet, literally a week or two ago, and some of these questions came up then, and there was an array of other lenders and brokers, but this has been something that's, as you can imagine, both of us being in the finance space, we get asked a lot, or we come up against these things. From where you're sitting, even from the estate agency side, value is going out. What is your interpretation of the way that properties are being valued now, and where expectations are for either sellers or borrowers? Okay,
so I think generally speaking that there is a nervousness in the market around valuation from everybody. It's one of the first things we hear before we get a deal going to application. The first thing a broker or client will say to us is, can we get the valuation booked? Because they're desperate. They don't want to invest a single penny more of time, effort, or money into legals or anything along those lines until they know right, okay, we've got the right numbers on the valuation. And so everybody's a bit nervous around that, including valuers. And valuers are obviously incredibly worried about PI costs and claims against PI and all this type of stuff. So, and then they're also trying to look into the future, but they're also looking backward because valuers are asked to provide a valuation on what's happened 6 months ago based on the prices that were agreed back then. Well, in a declining market or stagnating market or whatever, but certainly not in a rising market, that's very difficult to do. So they're also then thinking, well, hold on a minute, I've got a borrower here who's looking to buy X property. I'm using comparables from deals that were agreed 6 months ago, but they're not going to be developed for 9 months. So they're forward looking as well. And they're thinking, okay, how's the economy going to affect what the values are happening, how the interest rate rises, which I still don't think we've seen the full brunt of the interest rate rises in terms of the effectiveness of those and how they're going to affect either positively bringing inflation down, but also how they're negatively going to affect real estate prices. So you got nervous valuers, you got nervous borrowers, you got lenders who are leaning on valuers to provide them with accurate numbers. So what we're starting to see is numbers come in a little bit later than maybe borrowers would hope. And they call that a down valuation.
Yeah.
Hear all the time, it's been down valued. It's been valued lower than you expected, but whether it's a down valuation or not is another thing. So one of the things that we're starting to notice more and more is not so much on the day one values, because the day one values, if you're just purchasing a property today and you're not doing any like kind of major works, it kind of is what it is. You can use comparables from the past. You can allow a little bit of a reduction, but ultimately it's that old saying is the property's worth what someone's willing to pay. And so if I take the estate agency business that we've got, we're not really seeing any down valuations versus what people are paying. On the lending business, what we're starting to see is that GDVs are being impacted, and therefore residual calculations are going lower against the day one. So what we're tending to find is that people are, I wouldn't say they're overpaying, they're probably paying what the property is worth today, however, or the land or whatever, however, the eventual scheme, the GDV on that eventual scheme is being clipped, and then when you factor in the cost of works and then work out the residual coming backwards, then it's coming in lower than expected.
And they are overpaying effectively when you look at the calculation.
When you go backwards from there. Yeah, exactly. If they were just buying, let's say, I don't know, someone's buying a 3-bedroom detached house and there's potential to develop into a 5-bedroom, push out the back, push out the top, which is typical what we do, then the 3-bedroom house may be worth what it is as a 3-bedroom house, but as a 5-bedroom PD scheme development, it isn't. So we're definitely starting to see some impact there. And that's causing problems, that's causing challenges for everybody, for borrowers, for surveyors, for ourselves. Trying to make schemes stack is becoming increasingly challenging.
So